Welcome into the Cincinnati Bengals Dynasty Review, looking at what happened in 2023 and beyond. Weird year for the Bengals for sure. They still managed to get to 9-8, almost make the playoffs, but Burrow was hurt in the beginning, came back, started to look good, got hurt and ended his year. So, Brian, Bengals, what do you think of from the Bengals and beyond? A lot of promising pieces here.
Definitely. I don't have like a good like one-liner for them. But yeah, promising. I'd say so. It's kind of funny that Burrow still finished. Sorry, I know we're gonna get into it, but I can't believe he finished as QB 25 in 10 games.
Yeah, that is impressive. But a lot of injuries, I guess. Just kind of break down what to expect from the Bengals. You know, Zach Taylor's still there. They did lose their offensive coordinator. But I think Zach Taylor was kind of calling the plays, or he was obviously, he's an offensive guy, so he's heavily involved. But it'd be interesting to see what effect that has, because I did kind of look at, coordinator changes when you have a coordinator who was in place for at least 2 years and obviously the same quarterback. And the next year for the quarterbacks were almost always down. I think there was like 11 instances, especially when that offensive coordinator got a head coaching job. So essentially you're saying this is a good, you're not firing the offensive coordinator, you're losing a good one. And there's like 10 or 11 cases since 2010 where that's happened. And I think like 9 of them, we had a down season the next year. So something to keep in mind there for Burrow and the Bengals. But their cap space, they have $61 million in cap space, which is the 6th most. So they have a lot of money. They have 9 draft picks, including I think all their picks. They have a bunch of comp picks. So free agents, Jake Browning is a free agent who was obviously fantasy relevant, helped people there for a few weeks. A.J. McCarron, no one cares. Trevion Williams, no one really cares. Wide receivers, they're 2, 3, and 4. Wide receiver 2, 3, and 4. Tee Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Trenton Irwin are all free agents. So we'll get into that in a little bit. And then tight end, I think like all their tight ends are free. Yeah, all their tight ends are free agents. Irv Smith, Drew Sample, Mitchell Wilcox, and Tanner Hudson. So let's jump into it with Burrow. I was looking, not a huge drop-off, which makes sense for Joe Burrow. I mean, he's at QB 6, according to Keep Trade Cut. We were talking about Stroud before we started recording these, and at QB 3, like I would still take Burrow over Stroud pretty easily. We've seen Burrow approach that over 4,500 yards, 35 plus, 40 touchdown season, which is what you need from a guy if they're not going to give you at least 400 yards rushing around there. So, we've seen that potential from Burrow, and I think he's going to come back and have a big year. So where are you at with Joe Burrow in terms of a disappointing year, obviously due to injury, but where are you at with him heading into 2024?
I mean, I think you summed it up pretty well. Like, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about. Like, we know he's good. He went to the Super Bowl, 2 years ago? 2022?
Yeah, maybe, or 2021.
Yeah, I can't remember. But anyways, we know he's really good. And, he's going to be there with Jamar Chase, his buddy, for a long time. So, yeah, I don't think you're able to really buy Burrow unless you do have Stroud, I guess, and trade Stroud for Burrow plus
anything.
Yeah, that was going to say just plus. Yeah, like that's wonderful if you could pull that off.
Yeah, I am curious. I never really looked into it. I don't know if there's information what exactly his injury was. It was a weird hand injury where like you saw him try to throw it and his arm went dead. So I am a little curious about that. And people are talking about an injury-prone guy. I don't necessarily buy it yet. I don't really buy injury-prone in general.
Yeah, I mean, none of his injuries are related, so it's like it's just kind of bad luck, it's different if a guy keeps getting soft tissue injuries in like his legs constantly. It's like that's a little more of a thing as opposed to like breaking some like a bone or something like that. That's just bad luck. According to Keep Trade Cut, you can get pick 110 and Joe Burrow for Stroud.
That's ridiculous.
I know. Who's doing that? You know, like there's no way it's happening.
No. We'll talk a lot about Stroud soon-ish because they're coming up.
Yep.
The Texans. But yeah, not much else to say about Burrow. Jake Browning is a definite hold. He's a free agent. I'm curious. I mentioned this when we talked about the Titans. I'm curious if the Titans bring him in just because, again, offensive coordinator of the Bengals goes to the Titans as the head coach. So do they bring him in, potentially compete with Will Levis or, so definitely a hold for now, see where he goes. He looked good at times, so he can be like a potential spot starter.
Yeah. I mean, shit. Like it's funny. He finished as quarterback 27 in one less game. We just said Burrow was 25 in 10 games. He was 27 in 9 games. Wow. So he's just as good as Burrow. No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and actually, it's more like, 9 games. He had some good games there. 3 games over 20 points, which was more than Patrick Mahomes, I'm pretty sure. A.J. McCarron, no one cares about. Joe Mixon, they have a potential out, although I don't think it's a whole lot of saving, but I'm really curious to see what they do here. Is this a guy that goes potentially to Tennessee? I always talk about, players following their coordinators. I don't know. Like the beginning in January of 2023, I sold Mixon for, I think it was like the 109 or 110 or something.
Yeah.
And I was fine. I was happy with it. I know he had a good year last year. I wasn't expecting him to just completely fall off, but if he's back with the Bengals, he's going to be another good year, top 12 guy, because he's going to get the volume. So I don't really know what to say about Mixon. Let's see where he's ranked. RB 26, and I think that's fine. I don't want to. If I'm contending, I probably don't want to sell him for that. Like unless someone's going to overpay, because I think he can be another top 12 guy, and that's kind of how you have to approach running backs. Like, what can you do for me in 2024 for most running backs, and he's one of those.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are valued higher than him, like significantly too, where it's like, I don't know about Brian Robinson and, I don't know. I'm just looking at like Tajay Spears is like, 17 spots ahead of him. Like that's obviously like we kind of talked about him, Spears, like when we did the Titans video. So we won't like rehash that, but it's kind of like, I honestly, because given their cap space situation, like I really think he's going to stay on the Bengals.
Yeah.
Like they can pay him like not crazy money, but he knows the system. He's been productive in it. It's like, why change that up? Like just keep the dude who, you can trust, very involved in the passing game, not crazy, but it's like, 300 plus yards, closer to 400 this last year, over 400 in 22. And it's like, I think he's a solid like hold for the Bengals. It's kind of crazy that he's valued as like a mid-second round pick. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I guess it's, just because it's so early, but I would totally buy him for that.
Yeah, I mean, he's 3 straight years as a top 12 running back, including 2 in the top 5. I mean, even guys like Ramondre, Jalen Warren, Zach Charbonnet, I'll take Mixon over all those guys. Again,
for sure.
None of those guys I'm going to look past 2024 on. And I think
Brian Robinson, sorry.
Yeah. I think Mixon finishes better than them. I mean, even guys like, Najee is an interesting one to talk about, which we will later on. But I mean, I see Mixon being better than all those guys if healthy. For sure.
That's kind of funny. We haven't talked about Pitt because they made it to the playoff and the Bengals didn't. Like, it's just so weird to think about, but
Yeah.
obviously injuries and stuff like that. But yeah.
Chase Brown is a what?
I was just gonna say, what about Chase Brown? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Chase Brown is a definite hold, because what if they do let go of Mixon? And they started to use him more as the season went on. From week 13 on, they started to put him in more, and he made some plays. He was decent. 9 for 61 in week 13. 11 for 43 isn't terrible. I guess it's not great, but so yeah, he's a definite hold. 3 catches for 80 yards in 1 week. Yeah, he's kind of. I liked him coming out of college of Illinois. He was like their entire offense in Illinois, and yeah, I think he's just kind of like a nice explosive player, and so he's one of the better handcuffs right now. So
yeah, he definitely made me nervous in those couple of weeks that you were talking about, because I was the Joe Mixon manager in our redraft league, and I was kind of just like, oh shit, like this guy's gonna take Joe Mixon's job. I thought he was a little more involved than his actual like snap share shows, but it was because he had like those explosive plays where it's just like, man, like this guy looks pretty good, but obviously they stuck with the game plan of Mixon's the dude, so he didn't actually produce very much, but yeah, he did look good. And like he showed flashes for sure.
Yep, definitely hold him or pick him up if he, for whatever reasons, out on waiver wire. And then no one else. Trayvon Williams, isn't Captain America the actor Chris Evans? That's the actor's name, right? Captain America guy. I think it is.
I think so. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, Chris Evans cut. Nothing to talk about there. Chase. Nothing to talk about Chase. He's really good. He probably fell behind CeeDee Lamb at this point, which is fine in my opinion. But you're not going to argue like one or the other strongly. So just needs to stay healthy with Burrow. That's about it. So anything you want to say about Chase?
No, not really. Like we know, like his year was a little disappointing, but just not because like where he finished or anything like that, but there was a lot of bad games in there. But most of the games without Burrow, he wasn't very good in, and so we kind of give him a pass there. And he is one of those guys, and there's not a whole lot of them that can give you that 40+ point week, which we saw against Arizona in week 5. I mean, I don't think he's going to get 19 targets and 15 catches very often, but it's in the wheelhouse. He has great chemistry with the quarterback. So, yeah, like there was nothing to say, and I just said a bunch. So yeah, Chase is good.
Yeah, really good. I mean, you look at it like, what was it? The first 10 weeks Burrow played, Chase had 4 games over 100 yards. So he had 1 after that. So yeah, it was just one of those situations. Garrett Wilson with Zach Wilson, Devontae Adams with Aiden O'Connell. You're just like, they're still going to be good, but they're going to be severely limited. So Tee Higgins, I think he's back. Burrow kind of mentioned something like, I did my contract in a way so we can keep Tee Higgins. So if that's a 1-year thing, a franchise tag thing, I don't know. But I think he's back with the Bengals because I think they want another shot at the Super Bowl with these guys. So if you wanted to buy Tee Higgins low, I would potentially do it. I mean, he's ranked as wide receiver 22. Like, I think he can still be a top 12 guy, a top 15 guy if this whole team stays healthy. Where are you at with Tee Higgins? Do you think he's back on the Bengals?
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. Like kind of run it back again. He must be a huge faller, right? Yeah, 6-month change. He dropped 11 spots from a top 12 wide receiver down to barely a low end number 2. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, now's the time to buy him. He's still only 25 years old. He was taken with the first pick around 4 years ago. We've seen, like, if he goes somewhere else, he's going to be, like, he has definitely, like, to be wide receiver 1 on any team that he goes to. Oh, not any team. You know what I mean? Like he's not supplanting Lamb or anything like that if he goes to the Cowboys. But yeah, I think right now is the time to buy, because even if he's not with the Bengals, like I said, like he will still be good.
Would you prefer him on the Bengals, obviously, as the wide receiver 2, or like the wide receiver 1 for like the Panthers?
Shit, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on who that person is, right? Like, but yeah, I think I'd rather have Higgins, because we have seen him be productive.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm saying, would you prefer Higgins staying on the Bengals as wide receiver 2, or Higgins as a wide receiver 1 for the Panthers? Yeah,
no,
that's
I
what
think
I meant.
yeah, okay, I got you. I think I'd rather I'd have Higgins as the number 2 with Burrow, because we've seen him be productive as the number 2 guy on the team. So it's like he's not gonna necessarily like win you weeks. I mean, he definitely has the potential for that stuff, but it's kind of like you're not playing him with that in mind, you know. Like he's basically like a mid, wide receiver. I'd say like 15 to 18, kind of like on a per week basis, I would assume.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just counting. He was like Burrow's. He had 2 good years, obviously 2 good years, 2021, 2022, where he's throwing 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns. And I think Higgins was like last year in 2022 was or 2021, sorry, was top 12 per game. He missed a few games. And then last year, I think he was like top 14 per game. So if Burrow is back to being Burrow, Higgins is going to be a top 15 guy. So
yeah, I mean, just look at it. Yeah, it says he started 12 games. And I don't know if he like missed. I'm just kind of looking at like the snap percentage. Some of it doesn't really make sense. I'd have to go back and say, oh, did he get hurt? And because he didn't play the next week, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, he was still basically on 100 target, only about 60 catch pace, but right around close to 1,000 yards, I would say. He ended up with 650. So, and that was in a bad year without his quarterback for most of the games he played, or half the games he played. So, yeah, buy low.
I do have a mental block when it comes to like redraft and stuff of like, do I really want to take the second receipt? Like, do I really want Jalen Waddle, or I really want Tee Higgins, Devontae Smith, like those guys? Like, I have this like mental block of like, no, I'll take the wide receiver 1 on this team.
Yeah. Well, especially where they were getting drafted last year in redraft, like they were basically end of the second round guys, you know, which is like, it was kind of crazy, but I mean, we kind of all
like they finished like that, right? Like,
yeah, I know.
You know, like both Smith and Brown were top 12, both Waddle and Hill were top 12 in 2022. So yeah, kind of crazy. There are some potential stashes on this team because I don't think Tyler Boyd's going to be back. I think his replacement currently on the team is Charlie Jones, who was drafted, I think, 4th round, 5th round out of Purdue. He's projected as like a slot guy, so he could be the new Tyler Boyd. And we see, you know, Boyd has some value if one of these guys miss. And then Andre Yoshivas would be he's from Princeton. He was like an athletic freak. Went to Princeton, obviously not a big football school, but he's like 6'3", 212. He runs like a 4.3. Definitely was a project receiver. If for whatever reason Higgins is gone and they don't bring in anyone else, like he was the guy that was lining up. It was Trenton Irwin, was the guy lining up in Higgins' spot. But obviously Irwin's a free agent as well. I think he leaves. So both those guys, Jones and Yoshivas, are stashes, in my opinion, at least through free agency in the draft. Just see what happens. And then tight end, they're all free agents, and none of them. I guess Tanner Hudson, I shouldn't say none of them. Tanner Hudson was coming on there for a while, for a good stretch. I'm trying to pull up his game log, but I know he was the tight end that was like doing something. Yeah, if you look from like week 9 on, so
still playing like 30% or less of the snaps kind of thing. So I don't think there's a whole lot there. You know, he just got done with his 6th year in the league, and we've never seen anything from him. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Irv Smith sucks. He was so like second round pick, a lot of potential, but just didn't work out, man. I thought this is the year. Like this was the year he was going to do something, and yeah, just nothing to talk about. They could be in the market for a tight end for sure. I don't know who's off the top of my head who's a free agent, but yeah, easy enough to finish up there. Anything else about the Bengals?
No, I think we covered it all pretty well. Yeah, definitely pay attention to who they sign as a tight end. But I mean, have we seen much from Burrow regarding tight ends in general? Yeah. Like, I can't even think of who their tight end was 2 years ago before Irv Smith signed. Like,
they have it was like CJ Uzama there for a year or two, and then Hayden Hurst. Last year, and basically every year with Burrow, it was like, well, it was only a couple years, I guess. It was like 50 catches, 400 to 500 yards, and a few touchdowns. But
yeah,
what if Charlie Jones is not as good as Tyler Boyd, and they need a third option, and it becomes the tight end? So that's always
the third option's Mixon.
yeah, no, you're right.
Go ahead. Yeah, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think that's it. I'm just reading a headline. Christian McCaffrey's mom says her son can't afford a suite in Super Bowl 58. So, anyways,
what?
I don't know. I do think the suite seat, like they're like a couple $1 million potentially. So, to get a suite at the Super Bowl game.
Dude, how the hell do they not like hook guys up like that? Like, well, I guess it's not in their stadium, so.
They don't even do it for their own. I remember they came out with the Bengals actually because Joe Burrow gave his suite to Jake Browning and his family when he started, and Burrow had to pay a decent amount of money for the suite. Like it was kind of crazy. I forget what it was, but it was like it was a significant amount. Like where a guy like Jake Browning couldn't afford it for his family. Obviously Burrow can afford it, but.
That's crazy to think about. A couple of $1 million to go watch a game. Like, I get it. It's the Super Bowl, but it's like, man,
it's crazy.
That's ridiculous. Like,
it is. It really is. So the cheapest is like 8,000-9,000, I think. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. We'll be back with the Rams. Fun team. Definitely. We'll get into them next. So as always, like and subscribe. We will catch you guys next time.